Well, good morning. In just a minute, we'll have a word of prayer. Obviously, I'm not normally out here at this point in this quarter. Jonathan had to take Ashley to the hospital. She's been having, obviously, some ongoing health issues for the last number of years, but it seems it's with her heart now. So please remember her and Jonathan in your prayers. They'll be running some tests. Don't know how long she'll be in the hospital, so please remember them if you would, and obviously the boys, and just there's opportunity there for us to be able to help, and I know some have already stepped up. So please just make sure you remember them certainly in prayer and look for those opportunities to help them. Is there anybody else anyone like to mention before we go to God in prayer? Gary. Okay. Jeanette, you said Jeanette Dunlop. She's not feeling well. Anyone else? And of course, there's a number of people. Kevin's having a surgery this week on his knee, or on his back. Cindy Skinner will be next month. There's just a lot of people having a lot of things that are going on, and we need to remember on an ongoing basis. So if you would, please bow with me. We'll go to God in prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we thank you so much for this beautiful day that we have to come to worship you. We thank you, dear Father, for all that you do for us, for your grace, your mercy, your love that you have bestowed upon us, your willingness to send your Son to die for us, to give us the opportunity to be your children. We thank you, dear Father, for the avenue of prayer that we have, that we can at any time talk to the Creator of all things. We thank you, dear Father, for all that you have done for us, for this country that we live in, for the opportunities that we have to worship you freely. We ask, dear Father, that you would be with those that are mentioned that are sick, that you would definitely be with the Compton family at this time. You should be with Kevin this week as he has surgery, and the others, dear Father, that are dealing with various illnesses, those that are mourning the loss of loved ones, and those that are just going through various difficulties of life. We ask, dear Father, that you will continue to be with all of us as we strive to shine our lights in this world that will bring more people to you, that they can have a relationship with you here on earth and also for eternity. And it's through your Son's wonderful name we pray. Amen. All right, so you all have been talking about the themes of the Bible, and I was given the question that Jonathan was going to start with this morning. And the question was, who is the hero of the story? So I put a picture up of people that you have no idea who they are, other than the fact it says Hebrews the 11th chapter 1 through 7. So you think about the Hall of Faith, as people may call it, a whole chapter of this cloud of witnesses, people that lived the life in faith and service to God, and they were amazing people. You guys have talked about, I believe, Noah, and you've talked about Abraham thus far. So who's the hero of the story? Who's the hero? Is it Abraham? Is it Noah? Or is it someone else? It's God. Yeah, so God is the theme. So you've been talking about throughout this whole time, really seeing this golden thread, we'll call it, that's going through the scriptures. Fortunately, the high school class I'm teaching is doing a similar subject. So it's this golden theme. You see this obvious plan that our God has established. You see it going through the various different families as we're getting into now. And it's not based on how the families are. We're going to look at some of the issues that have come up on the families. But it's about God. And certainly there are people that we see in the story that have tremendous faith, but they're just human beings. We also see that they have issues that they have to deal with, just like us. And I think that's important. As we go through the Old Testament in particular, a lot of times we almost look like they're superheroes. They're just humans. And they have chosen to have a relationship with God or chosen to obey God, and it's the same choice that you and I have. So last week, I guess you talked a little bit about the promises to Abraham. So I'll just go ahead and put them up here. You understand them. He had the land that he was going to be able to live in Canaan. The descendants would come from his nation, and all nations would be blessed through him. Now, when these promises are given to Abraham, how many descendants or how many children did he have? 0. He did have descendants, I shouldn't put it that way, but he had no children. And so we all understand the story. We know that God is going to bless him with Isaac, but there's some conversation going on, and all of a sudden you have Ishmael that comes up, obviously, is going forward as man is trying to get involved in this situation and try to figure out what they needed to do. And so we have a lot of different things that occur, and you're not going to be able to see this very well at all. But the whole point of this is to just basically show the lineage that you have. And so you have Terah at the top. You have Abraham's father. We're told that he was an idolater. And so you have Abraham's going to be called, obviously. And then you have Isaac. And so the stars up there you might be able to see as the line that we're following. You have Isaac. And who does Isaac marry? Rebekah, which was Abraham's brother's granddaughter on there. So Rebekah's brother's daughter. And so then you have Jacob and Esau. And so you can see how this lineage is going. So when you talk about Abraham, that's one thing. You get to Isaac. Isaac has these amazing stories that occur with him. Right? We understand a little bit about the things that he goes through in his life. But it's fascinating the stories behind what's happening here. So you talk about Isaac as an example. Who was his favorite child? Esau. Who was his wife's favorite child? Jacob. So all of a sudden you have issues. Jacob gets a little older, or gets a lot older. He has a son by the name of Joseph, who had a coat of what? Many colors. Why? He was the favorite. And if you look at the bottom, some of you up close can see all the names up there of the different children of the different tribes going forward. But you see the children that are mentioned. It's not like Joseph was the only one. And we understand the story of what happens with Joseph as you go forward in the story. So there were issues that were going on, obviously, in the family. There were not perfect people. And that's not the point of the story. That's not the point or the theme of the Bible. The point is God. And so as we go through this, you'll see that God's going to repeat the amazing promises to Isaac in Genesis, the 26th chapter, verse 24. The same promises that were given to his father Abraham. You may have talked when Abram's name is changed to Abraham, which is going to be the father of many nations. How many children did he have then? None. So his name says you're a father of many nations. You're going to have many children. The promises, many children, but he didn't have them. And so certainly you see the amazing power of God as we go through this. The promise is given in Genesis, the 26th chapter, in verse 24, very similar to as it says to Abraham. It says, the Lord appeared to him, Isaac, the same night and said, I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not fear, for I am with you. I will bless you and multiply your descendants for the sake of my servant Abraham. And so we know the story. We know all that is happening. We understand that it's going from generation to generation. And then you bring in these two guys that we're going to talk about. In Genesis 25, leading up to what we just read in 26, you have the twins. The twins are born, and we're told about an issue that they have right off the bat. There's going to be, goes on between the two in the womb, quite frankly, and then outside as well. And so you have these two babies that are born. Who's born first, or who's the oldest, firstborn? Esau. So Esau's first. Who's holding on to his foot? Jacob. Don't forget me. Goes on out. So you have Jacob holding on to his foot as he is born. What did they look like? What are we told about Esau? He's a hairy dude. And what color was that hair? Red. Right. He's a red hairy dude. As we see here, Isaac was just a nice looking young baby. Right? He was pretty. And so you have the two. Esau is going to be what? What does he grow up to be? A hunter. So Isaac views him from that perspective. He loves his son. Rebekah loves Jacob. He's more a peaceful man, as it says in verse 27. And he lived in tents. So that's the description of Jacob that we are told. Esau goes out, and it says that he was famished. If you have the New American Standard, I don't remember all the other versions, but you have this red stuff in verse 30, is how the New American Standard words it. Please let me have a swallow of that red stuff there, for I am famished. Therefore his name was called Edom. Red stuff. Here's my say stew. But you have this situation where he went out hunting, he caught nothing, there was no food, he's starving to death as he's talking about here. And Jacob takes this moment to do what? Well, he kind of gave it to him. But yeah, this is a good time. I'm going to give you this red stuff. You know what this is worth? Your birthright. So you give me that, you can have as much stuff as you want. You can have as much stew as you would like. And Esau's reaction is, well, what's the big deal? I'm about to die, so here you go. Here's your birthright. What's that to me? And so you have the first of a couple of situations we're going to talk about where Jacob now is given the birthright. What's the big deal about being the firstborn at this time? What's the big deal? Double portion. It meant more as the oldest. Unfortunately, that's not the case now for those of us that are firstborn. But that's what it was. It was highly important. Right? So it was so important that Jacob almost, it seems, was like waiting for this moment to do this. This is something that I guess just crossed his mind at that moment to be able to do this. But he gave him the red stuff. Esau, it says in verse 34, despised his birthright. So he gave up something that was so precious because he thought he was going to die. And you think about this story as we go forward, but you also see the plan of God. He knows what's happening. He understands obviously what's going on. You have Jacob now is going to be viewed as the firstborn. Then you get into this next story. So Genesis 27, you see the break in the family that is happening here. We just kind of talked about it with the love and how one had a favorite that was going on here. You have a very similar situation. So Isaac is a very old man at this point, and what's he struggling with? His vision. He can't see. So Rebekah has this amazing idea. So Esau's gone. She had heard the what was going to happen in verse 5 of chapter 27. She heard what's going on, and she goes to her son Jacob, and they had this conversation of what's going to happen. And what does she tell him? Anybody remember? What does she tell him to do? Yeah, dress up like your brother. Your dad can't see very well. Dress up like your brother. And what does that mean? What did Jacob have to do? He had to get hairy. And so the best way to do that was goat skin. You have to get a lot of hair to be like Esau. So he puts it on, and he goes in, and he's talking to his dad as it goes on. In verse 11, as in chapter 27, Jacob answered his mother Rebekah, "Behold, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man." And so that was the issue. And so you're going to go through this of what's happening. You have Rebekah takes some of his clothes, of Esau's clothes, in verse 15, gives it to Jacob. Jacob puts it on, so everything's set. Then he goes in, and what's the issue that Isaac notices? You can change a lot of things, but he didn't sound like Esau. You feel and probably smell like Esau, but you sound like Jacob. And so that's the issue that is going on. You have the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau in verse 22. He did not recognize him because of his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands, so he blessed him. But he said, "Are you really my son, Esau?" And Jacob said, "I am." And so you have the eating and the blessings that go on here. And what happens? Now you have the stealing. What's the difference between the blessing that Esau has, or that Jacob gets, and that Esau gets? Is there a comparison of the two? What Jacob gets is amazing blessing. Certainly what Esau's going to be taken care of. But Jacob's blessings are certainly the blessings that we're going to be following. You see, continue going forward. This nation, the land, all the different things that we've been talking about, the fatness of the earth, the abundance of the grain, people will serve you, all the things that are mentioned in verse 27 and following. And then obviously Esau finds out about this, and what happens? How is Esau's reaction to this when he finds out what's going on? He's furious. He wants to kill his brother. And so he wants him to be blessed as well. The blessing doesn't go as great. But verse 41 says, "So Esau bore a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing with which his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, 'The days of mourning of my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob.'" Now we get to what this lesson is going to be about. When Rebekah hears about this and Jacob hears about this, obviously Jacob is scared to death, and Rebekah wants to do something for his son. And then you get to chapter 28. So you have this amazing part of the story, and Jonathan, he sent me an email about this. I want to make sure this was pointed out. You have Abraham going into the out. So you had him going into the land of Canaan, the promised land. Now Jacob's leaving the land, going to Laban, going to his mom's brother, his uncle's house. And so you have him getting away because of Esau. And certainly going forward, we know that there's going to be some difficulties, at least on Jacob's side. Esau is going to mature, and there's going to be some different things that occur. But you get to chapter 28, and we're going to look at this chapter now. So Genesis chapter 28, verses 1 through 5. Can I get somebody to read those verses for me? Brian, thank you. Thank you. So you have the lineage here, the genealogy a little bit, trying to explain the family tree that's going on here. So you have him going back to where his family was from. He's going to Rebekah's brother's house. But what does Isaac say to him? So you have this situation. This is him leaving, and what is said to Isaac, or what is said to Isaac to Jacob? Verse 3. What's the promises given? Oh. Yeah. So you have, again, Abraham, the blessings were given to him. Isaac, they're told to. Now you have Jacob as well. They're all being told the same blessings. This is very similar to what you'll hear, or you will hear, going forward. I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And you hear that over and over again in the scriptures. And this is, again, another one of those examples that we're seeing. You're seeing this plan that is going forward. This is, again, God's plan is so awesome that it even involves the horrible choices of man that are going on. It's amazing when you think about all the different people that are involved in this plan, or when you get to Matthew and Luke and you look at the genealogy of Jesus, they weren't all perfect people. Matter of fact, none of them were. In many cases, there's a lot of bad things that occurred in that grouping of people that are mentioned. But the point is, God's plan was going to be done, and it was going to be fulfilled, and it was understanding that it was not God making man do these different things. He doesn't force Jeconiah to be a horrible king. That was the choice of Jeconiah. You have different people and their choices that were going on, but God's plan was going to be fulfilled. And the whole purpose of all of this is God's love for his people, the theme of the Bible. He loves us so much that he created us with free will to choose some horrible things if we want. But he also gave us the opportunity to have that relationship with him if we want. The love of our God, seen time and time again, even in the midst of bad decision after bad decision by man. And that's the amazing thing going forward with this. And how you see now all of a sudden Jacob leaving the country that had been given. He leaves because he's so fearful of his brother, and quite frankly, deservedly so. He should be. But the reality of what's going on as we go forward is that Esau matures and he understands what's happened, and then we can follow Jacob and what the plan is going to be as we go forward. So you can come here, verses 1 through 5. We're just given this understanding that the blessing is given to Jacob. He's leaving. He's going to his family's, his uncle's house as we go forward. So any thoughts on this? All right. So we continue on. Verses 10 through 15. You have in the midst of here kind of Esau, so Jacob in verse 7, before we get into verse 10, Jacob obeys his father. He goes. Esau gets married a couple of times. And who does he marry? You don't have to say the names, but who does he marry? Canaanites. I'm not marrying people in our family. He's going outside of that. He obviously is a little bit upset. Verse 8 of chapter 28, just so we're clear on what the purpose was, Esau saw the daughters of Canaan displeased his father Isaac. So he what? Married them. He knew exactly what he was doing. Right? We need to make that very, very clear. He knew what was going on. So as we go through this in verse 10 and following, the importance is to understand the context. Why is this so important? Jacob is leaving his home. He's going to relatives. You imagine he's so concerned about Esau coming, and he has this amazing dream. And this is why this is important as we go forward. Somebody like to read verses 10 through 15? Amy? Thank you. I want you to imagine again, Jacob is scared to death. He's leaving. He says he's going towards where his family lives, relatives live. And he has to stop. He's tired. And so he stops along the way. He has this pretty awesome dream. And we'll certainly can see this in the New Testament as well. But he has this amazing dream here. And we could talk, and we will talk about the dream in just a minute. But let's look and see what God says to him. The things that God says to him and how powerful this had to have been for Jacob in this context, in this situation. Certainly we can apply it to us, but in this situation, what does God tell Jacob? What does he tell him? During the dream part. Yeah, excellent. The same promises that were given to Abraham. He tells, so Isaac had told, or had talked about it earlier, now you have God telling Jacob what was going to happen. These promises are going to continue. And what Jerry said, let's put these up here, I'm going to bring you safely back to this land. You're leaving this land, you will come back safely to this land. And I am not going to leave you until he has done what he has promised. Why would that be such a powerful thing in the minute, in that moment, in the present for Jacob? What was he so scared of? Ann? Okay. Yeah. So he's certainly on the run, for sure. Why else? Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The understanding of for us, the understanding of the big picture, the same promises that have been told to Abraham and Isaac, you have the same thing that's being told here. Right? It's yeah, it is a fascinating story when you study Jacob and we study Joseph and how the growth process on both of them, but seeing God and seeing God and seeing God, and that's the same for us. You know, if we're honest and open and look at in our past and see where far or how far we've come, the things that have happened for us, the things we've done, you see God. You see him walking with us, helping us, all the different pieces in our lives. You see it in other people. And it's important for us to understand that. We need to see that. We need to understand what God has done, not only for us, but for Jacob, what he's done for in the New Testament, what he's done for other people in our lives. It's awesome when you see those, and it's even better when we apply them, when we understand and trust God. He has this dream. He certainly could have woken up like, wow, that was a crazy dream. Not even think anything of it. I'm scared still. But he wakes up and he's excited. He understands what happened, what God has done for him. So much so he's going to name that place this. And so it's important to understand how powerful this dream was for Jacob and going forward in his life. Dwayne. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, this is the same man that's also going to have a favorite son. Right? He continues that process as going forward. This is the guy whose name's going to be changed to what? Israel. What's Israel mean? Fights with God, strives with God. It's not like it's like God's people. It's this wrestling with God. That's why this is going to be called that. And so you think about just the name, just the purpose as to what's going on, and certainly there's more to that story, but you just think about Jacob and everything that's happening to him and what's going on here, and for God to say, I'm going to give you this dream, and you're going to have this dream about this ladder, and you're going to see this ladder, and then I'm going to tell you and remind you of these amazing blessings that are coming, and I am going to be with you. And yes, the one story that we know about Esau not having a great hunting trip, he could find Jacob. I mean, you think about, I'm going to go to sleep knowing that my brother is coming, knowing that he wants to kill me. There's a lot of things that would, I'm sure, make a difficult situation for Jacob. But God coming and saying what he says is a powerful thing if Jacob believes it. Because God also says, I'm going to be with you. And then we can walk away and that doesn't change anything that we think. Or we allow it to change our thought process. And we allow ourselves to trust him. We are willing to have that relationship with him. But it's based on our choice. You have a choice. You know, God says, don't worry about tomorrow. Why? Why would I not worry about tomorrow? I'm with you. Why would I look at these flowers and see how beautiful they are? Or look at birds, how they're not worth anything. And he says, you're more valuable than them, aren't you? Why are you so worried? Why are you not trusting? And that's the same thing that you're seeing here with Jacob. Jonathan sent these pictures before. I don't know what the dream would have looked like. Maybe that one. Same. Guy sleeping, angels. That had been a pretty amazing dream. We've all had dreams, I'm sure. I've always used the example of me. I dreamt that I was a Jedi Knight one time. That didn't go well. But you imagine this dream, and it's an amazing dream. And we'll talk about either today or on Wednesday really the point of this dream and how Jesus uses this dream. And it's an amazing dream. But what is said to Jacob in this story, or what we just read, is so awesome. And when you're talking about the theme of the Bible, and you're talking about his love, and how in the midst of all of these things and how horrible what was going on, it's amazing to think about God telling him, I am going to take care of you. I am taking care of you, and we need to understand that part. No, that's a good point. It's pretty amazing to think about what happens here. I want to put this up here. We'll come back to this in just a second. So John, the first chapter, Jesus is going to use this illustration. So we'll come back to that in just a minute. But just to make the point of what was just said, is Jacob's reaction to this is pretty awesome. So he has this dream. Verse 16, it says, Jacob awoke from his dream and said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. Now, you take that for just a minute. What does that mean, or what do you think that shows of Jacob's perspective of the place he was, where he was? This is what Ben said. He was alone. He was absolutely alone. You think about, no, I didn't even know he was here. God is with me in verse 16. Verse 17, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. So again, this amazing reaction of Jacob. He's afraid, as it says in verse 17, but he's not afraid. This fear is not about Esau at this point. It's about what he just saw, what he just heard. Verse 18, so Jacob rose early in the morning and took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up as a pillar and poured oil on the top, and he called the name of the place Bethel. However, previously the name of the city had been Luz. Now, what's Bethel mean? House of God. So that's where we certainly talk often about the names and the importance of it. Jacob just changes his place. His poor people were like, this is Luz. Just change it to Bethel. But when you hear Bethel, it's the house of God. This is why this was called that. So when you go forward in scriptures, Bethel's going to come up often. You'll hear Bethel. And perhaps, hopefully you already were, but this is one of those things that you might be reminded of. This is where Jacob has his dream and the power of his dream going forward. So you see This is God's house. But you also see, as he's talking about here, that he is going to serve God. And so you have this powerful vow in verse 20 beginning. If God will be with me and will keep me on this journey that I take, I will give me food to eat and garments to wear, and I return to my Father's house in safety, then the Lord will be my God. This stone which I have set up as a pillar will be God's house, and all that you give me, I will surely give a tenth to you. And so there's a lot, obviously, you can unpack with this. But Jacob, you see the relationship now with Jacob and God. You see starting to go down the road, hopefully what we're talking about with Abraham. He understands who God is. He's beginning to understand that God is with him. He's understanding that just because he left his home where Isaac was, didn't mean that God stayed there and didn't follow, didn't come with him. God is with Jacob in this story, and he's saying, I vow that he will be my God. This is going to be my God. And so you have some powerful things and then that change here, and then obviously going forward you have him marrying Rachel, and that's a whole nother debacle. But over in John, the 1st chapter, we'll at least get this conversation started a little bit. John, the 1st chapter, Jesus is going to make mention of something that certainly sounds like this dream. And obviously this is the point. This is one of my favorite parts of the scriptures. John talks about really this interaction between the disciples. They found the Messiah. This is him. There's conversation that's going on. How do you know that's him? Well, just come and see him. Just come and see. And then there's this guy named Nathaniel. Nathaniel, his main famous statement is, can anything good come from Nazareth? And so you have this interesting conversation that goes on here. He's told just to come and see him. And then you skip down to verse 46. Nathanael said to him, can anything good come from Nazareth? Philip said, come and see. Jesus saw Nathanael coming to him and said to him, behold, an Israel indeed, in whom there is no deceit. Nathanael said to him, how do you know me? Jesus answered and said, before Philip called you, you were under the fig tree, I saw you. Nathanael answered him, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. Jesus answered and said to him, because I have said that I saw you under a fig tree, do you believe? You will see greater things than these. Truly, truly, I say to you, you will see the heavens open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. The connection between the two. The dream. You have God connecting in the Old Testament to Jacob. You have the angels. There's the connection that's coming up. What's Jesus in the New Testament? It's the plan that we are going to have a relationship, or can have a relationship with God. This amazing connection that you see of God and how he provides a way back to him, as it says up there. But you just imagine, I love this story for many reasons, but you just imagine Nathanael, for whatever reason, when Jesus said, I saw you under that fig tree, whatever was happening, made him say, you are the Son of God. And Jesus' response is, you haven't seen anything yet. You haven't seen anything yet. It is an amazing God that we serve. And it's an amazing plan that we get to read of and to be a part of. And it's because of the main theme of the Bible, God and his love for his people. It is a powerful, powerful theme for us to just constantly remind ourselves of. When we're going through difficulties, you think you're alone, all the different pieces that we can read of Jacob, even from the bad decisions that were made, God loves you. He wants a relationship with you, but it's your choice. You get to choose what that's going to look like. Just like Nathanael has a choice now. Is he going to follow or not? You're the Son of God. That's the amazing thing that you and I have as well. So Wednesday, I think you have the paper that talks about what you're going to be studying next. Who's teaching, we'll see, but certainly appreciate the opportunity to study with you this morning. So thank you.